Hey, Brian Freeman here. Hey, thanks for joining me. Today, we're going to talk about how you can actually talk to builders and talk to remodeling contractors about what they're charging you. And we're gonna go over some tips on what you should be asking them. So if you're looking to actually, maybe you're buying a house or you're selling a house, you can do the remodel, or you actually got some land or buying land and want to build a house, this is something that could definitely help. And you want to talk to the builder about this, or the remodeling contractor about this, right at the very front end of your conversations with them, to find out how they do things. Because if you're looking at, you're comparing possible pricing structures, or the cost, the guy tells you, hey, it's going to roughly cost this much, or it's going to roughly cost this much or this much. You got to know, hey, what's included in that, and how do you actually charge me as we go through the project. So, and I want to show you a cost breakdown and some examples of what that could possibly look like if you were looking, you had a couple different options as far as what you're going with. Okay. So first thing is, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you here. And what we have here is, this is actually a cost breakdown. This is a lender cost breakdown that would be prepped to go to a lender. So it's got building costs, soft costs, site costs, and it has your totals here, a total column that we have in the green, and then a prepaids that are been paid on the front end. So don't really need to worry about the prepaids on this, or the remaining balance column. And so we're going to talk more about how these individual line items are actually structured here. So yeah, if you're listening to this on the podcast, make sure you go over to our YouTube channel, because it'll be really helpful for you to actually see these columns. You actually see the numbers that we're talking about here and how these stack up at the end. So on this particular cost breakdown, you're going to see on the left-hand side, you have a cost categories. So these are like different line items. So you got your letter of intent. This is like your design portion of an agreement. Your permits and fees, permit processing, it'll skip all the way down to, you got your grading, your rough carpentry, lumber, fireplace, rock veneer, plumbing, electrical. So all the main components of the house and all the site costs, every single line item is listed out on the cost breakdown. You go all the way down, get to the bottom, you have a subtotal, and then there's always typically miscellaneous. And if you're getting a loan with a bank, they're going to require miscellaneous regardless. So 2% is really, really about as tight as you can go. So remodels could be as high as 10% or more, depending on what kind of a project it is. So you got to know that there's going to be some miscellaneous costs that are unaccounted for in the project, depending on the amount of unknowns that are there. So new construction, you can get a lot tighter on the numbers when inflation is not happening. So it's been very difficult to do this in the last year. We've seen just 10 to 20% increases on costs. But for the most part, 2%, you got to have a miscellaneous contingency for unforeseen items that are happening. It could be weather, whatever. So that could occur. So then you have your subtotal after that, and then you have your this particular thing. Builders will do this differently, but this particular cost breakdown has a supervision line item that's here. So, and that's going to be a percentage of the project. And then you have an overhead, and then you have a profit line item on the bottom here. So, and then you'll have a total. So this particular way that this cost breakdown is broken down is you have all of your costs up top, that these are actual bids or direct allowances, exact allowances for what you would spend to buy, say, your appliances, or the exact amount that the the framer bid for the rough carpentry work. So these line items, like looking here at your rough carpentry, you could pull a bid. This particular cost breakdown is set up to where you could actually pull a bid out and say, hey, this thing's $35,200, the bid I got for the framer, and that's going to match up. So, and if a builder tells you, hey, the way we do it is we have all of our costs, and then we put a margin at the bottom that covers our supervision, overhead, and profit. That's what this would look like. So they should be able to provide you with an exact bid that will match one of those line items. So even if they tell you it's fixed price, this is a way that you can actually tell if that's the case. You can spot check it or whatever. Say, hey, you got a number I can look at here for it's 35,200, match the framing number, or some of your appliances or another line, or maybe drywall, whatever. So you can see that these are true numbers here all the way down that are bid in this. So now, what a lot of times will happen is a guy will tell you, hey, I'm going to do this for 10%. Okay. So 10%, it's going to be cost plus 10% or whatever he says. Sounds really like a good price, but what'll happen a lot of times is you'll have these costs that he'll actually build a margin into each one of these line items as well, and then have the numbers down below. So contractor have the numbers, and this will look lower. These numbers down below for the overhead, supervision, and profit numbers will be much lower. So you want to be aware of that. So that can definitely happen. So we like to do it to where all the numbers above, so in all the line items are exactly what you get to spend on your appliances, what you get to spend on your plumbing fixtures. You get exactly what we're paying the framing contractor, because then we can show you an exact number, what that is. So when we're looking for builders, or we're looking to help people when they're getting ready to build, this is what we look at to make sure that this is being done like this. So, and it's very clear, what the costs are. We prefer this method because it's very clear. There's no, I guess there's nothing hidden. It's very transparent as to what's being spent. So, and then the fee down here is what the fee is. So these numbers could be anywhere from a 25 or 20% margin all the way up to a 45% margins, depending on what the complexity of the job is, the length of the job. So there's a lot of different things that go into what is actually charged here. So you got it. That's all taken into account. So the other way that some builders will do this is they will look at this and they'll go, okay, well, I'm going to do a cost plus. So they'll do all their costs and they'll do a plus, at the bottom. You'll hear that sometimes. So just make sure that when we talk about, there's numbers not built up above, but you'll also have where someone will just be like a fixed fee at the bottom. And they go, well, I'll do it for $100,000. I'll do it for $200,000. And then that's the bottom, that's going to be down at the bottom of this cost breakdown here, somewhere in here. So all these should be exact costs plus that amount at the bottom. Now, the thing that happens when you're doing custom homes is there's some changes that you can make during the process. And some of the changes are kind of irrelevant. They don't add more time. They don't add more costs to the project or complexity to the project or length of days to the project. So those expenses they're not like the actual builder who's charging you maybe a fixed price, like a fee to do that. He's not going to, maybe he wouldn't raise his price to do that. But as soon as, let's say you went from like vinyl windows to wood windows that were curved and they had arches in them, and there was a lot more work in the framing stage, and then there was more work in the drywall stages. So, and then on the doors as well, you had door jambs that had kerfing in the jambs. So that's going to add more work for the builder. It's going to add a length of time to the project. So when you make changes like that, you got to ask them, say, hey, is this going to increase will your fee change if we make certain changes? Try to get clear on what those certain changes would be that would trigger additional cost for them if it's on a fixed price at the bottom or a fixed fee at the bottom. So, and then typically, like if you're on a contract that's similar to this, where you have all your exact costs above, you're going to have a certain change order clause inside the contracts and say, hey, any change orders that are done are going to be maybe like, anywhere. It could be, like I said, the range, like maybe a 20% margin all the way up to 45% margin on the change orders that are done. So just make sure you're clear on what how the change orders are handled, and that way you're clear whenever the extra costs come in on that. So, all right. So let me see what else we could cover on this here that might be helpful. So this is to better clarify these columns here. You got a build cost column, you got a soft cost. These are like non-building, actual construction related costs. These are just the planning, the fees, and everything that's done up front. So engineering fees and that sort of thing. So that's all this. These are actual building costs. These are like into the house, actual hard cost materials. This is labor that's going into the project. And then you have your site costs over here that are site related. So solar's over here. It could go over here in the build cost, but we keep it over in the site costs. It's normally a pretty good chunk of money. So, and it really can vary depending on the size of the system that someone's wanting to put in. So you want to make sure you know your site costs. These are really important if you're getting ready to buy land, to evaluate the land costs. So make sure you know that. And then you'll just scroll down to the bottom here. So these all tally across. So you got your build, your soft costs, site costs, and then these all add up to your total costs over here. So make sure you're clear on that. And then just when you talk to your builder, make sure you get everything, I guess get it in writing from them as far as what's going to happen. There's going to be some type of an agreement. Typically, we'll enter into a design agreement to start out the process. A lot of work to be done on the front end. So unless you're building, maybe you're working with a production builder, then it's not as extensive. They just got options that you could pick and they can give you exact prices. But the actual plans and design, when you're doing a custom home, takes time. And so there's typically a letter of intent or design on the front end. So be ready to pay that whenever you start building. And that before you do that, though, you want to get clear on all these things here as far as how that builder is charging you and how you can actually look at a cost breakdown and understand it. So, all right. So I hope that helps you all. If you have more questions about this, feel free to visit our website at realpropertytv.com. We'd be happy to help you. Our headquarters up here in Middleton, Idaho. We've got another office down in Ramona, California. So, all right. Thank you so much and have a wonderful rest of your day.